Good morning and good day, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Jens Liebe, Team Leader for Innovation and the Future of TVET here at UNESCO-UNEVOC, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to our webinar on navigating the maze of digital tools and services. As a response to COVID-19, in many countries, TVET had shifted very abruptly to distance learning and online implementation, and this quick shift has put a heavy burden on both TVET's teachers and students alike. Today, we've come together to discuss the challenge of selecting the right tools and services for digital delivery in TVET, and it's great to see that so many of you have joined us today. Before we get started with our webinar, I would like to let you know that this event is being recorded and that interpretation is available in French and Spanish. So if you would like to listen in one of those languages, please select the respective audio channel. I would now like to invite Sue Choi, Director of UNESCO-UNEVOC, for her welcome remarks. Sue, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Jens. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening around the world. Welcome to the webinar on navigating the maze of digital tools and services. This is the third and the last webinar in the series that we've been organizing on TVET and digitalization. In the first two webinars, we looked at the teacher training issue and the social aspects of digital teaching in TVET. Today, we will review the actual tools and services for digital learning and teaching. In the title of today's webinar, we use the phrase navigating the maze. As implied by this expression, the market abounds in digital tools and services, often challenging TVET teachers with questions of what to choose, for what reasons and purposes, and what is a good institutional setup for digital delivery, and how can teachers identify suitable tools and services to make their distance teaching effective. Today's webinar is devoted to these questions, providing you with a useful learning experience. Before I close, I would like to thank again GIZ for its very generous financial support for this webinar series, and the Omnia Education Partnerships, the international commercial arm of the Finnish UNEVOC Center Omnia, for organizing the series. So thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Sue, for welcoming our participants. As Sue has just mentioned, this webinar is possible through the generous support of GIZ, and I'm very happy to invite Jeanette Burmeister, Head of the Sector Project TVET at GIZ, to open our webinar. Jeanette, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Jens, and thank you very much, Sue. Thanks for inviting me again. It's a pleasure to provide opening remarks for this webinar. I greet you from all over the world, and I feel very honored again to participate to this UNESCO-UNEVOC COVID-19 response project. Strengthening the responsiveness, agility, and resilience of TVET institutions for the post-COVID-19 era is not only the title of the project, but it is also an important message that we should all advocate for future-oriented TVET. Congratulations again to the whole team for this impressive concept and delivery. Dear ladies and gentlemen, digital tools and services are essential for future-oriented TVET. We can already be sure digital tools and services will be an integral part of future-oriented TVET. There is no doubt that new digital teaching and learning tools have enormous potential to improve the quality of TVET. The question is no longer if digital tools and services will become a key tool for TVET. Instead, it is now how digital tools and services can be enhanced teaching and learning. The COVID-19 pandemic has accelerated the uptake of distance and online learning approaches in TVET. Several surveys showed that at least half of the TVET providers made available additional resources in their organizations to deploy new technologies and/or expand the use of online and offline distance learning. The range is from basic solutions like learning material distributed via television and mobile-based communication to more sophisticated tools like online learning platforms, artificial intelligence supported platforms for assessment and mentoring, or virtual reality or augmented reality simulations for real work experiences. At the same time, TVET personnel, many of them have been exposed to those technologies maybe for the first time, are feeling overwhelmed by the abundance of these digital tools and service. TVET teachers and trainers may lack tech surveillance and organizational guidance on how to pick and apply tools adequate to the needs of their learners. TVET managers making critical decisions nowadays on the digital transformation of their organizations, they have to consider several things before choosing the right technology from the maze of tools and services. While the selection often focuses on investment, utility, connectivity, data security, and technology adoption, the decision is sometimes based on costs rather than the capacity of teachers and learners or other pedagogical factors. Ladies and gentlemen, technology is a means for quality education. It is not an end. Thus, our compass for moving in the maze should always be geared towards the learning objectives and the needs of educators, teachers, and the learners. They must remain in the core of technology investments for TVET institutions. With the pandemic, the persistent gaps in access to learning opportunities and the possession of digital skills became even more visible. We need to keep the balance between an openness towards the use of new digital solutions and jumping on the hype train. Let's align our compass and enter the maze of digital tools and services with the vision in mind to use them to realize meaningful and inclusive access to vocational education for all. Building on the discussion from the last two webinars, today different solutions will be showcased as well as types of organization level support to successfully navigate the maze of digital service and tools. Thank you very much, and I'm now looking forward to listening to interesting practices from countries like Singapore, Finland, Belarus, and many more. And I'm looking forward to a fruitful discussion and wish you all the best for today's webinar. Thanks again.
Thank you very much, Jeanette, for opening our webinar and for providing a great framing for our discussion today. You have already highlighted many important points that will be relevant for the panel discussion that will follow. And it's always a pleasure to have you with us, so thanks again for joining. Now it's time to move to our panel discussion, the main part of our webinar, and I would like to introduce to you once again our moderator, Mervi Jansson, who many of you remember from our last webinars. She is the CEO of Omnia Education Partnerships in Finland, our implementation partner in this activity, and I'm passing the floor to her to introduce our international panel of speakers to you. Mervi, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Jens, and a warm welcome to our audience to this panel discussion. Before we get started, I'd like to share some practical points for the audience. So if you have any questions for the panelists or UNESCO-UNEVOC, please type them in the Q&A window, and we will be addressing as many questions as we can at the end, but I believe we also have colleagues from UNESCO-UNEVOC who will answer questions during the webinar. And of course, you can also chat and share information and links with other attendees in the chat window. And as Jens mentioned, we also have interpretation available. But without further ado, today we have three distinguished panelists with us, and I'd now like to invite our panelists to shortly introduce themselves. If we start with Kiam Wee, could you please introduce yourself?
Hello, I'm Kiam Wee from ITE from Singapore. So currently in my portfolio, I take care of academic as well as facilities matters. So basically all related to our students training. So ITE is a vocational training institute in Singapore. And overall in the whole Singapore, ITE has about 28,000 students. That's full-time students. That's not including the part-time students. So under my portfolio, I have to take care of e-learning, education technology. So I think today's discussion is extremely important and also very interesting for me. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we have Esko then.
Hello, good morning, afternoon, and whatever time zone you are in. So I'm a key expert on digital learning in Omnia in Finland. And Omnia it's a multi-sectoral education provider, big in TVET and also big in adult liberal education. And in addition to Omnia and Finland, I work in different countries in different projects. Surely with UNESCO-UNEVOC and OEP, and we have this mentoring program going on currently. Then there are many EU level projects like twinning projects. And then, well, I used to say that, yes, I've been doing TVET from Sydney to Kuala Lumpur to San Diego and so forth. But as we have all learned, what does a place mean in these times and this context? So it's a more like non-lieu, like the French researcher Marc Auger said, that it's the sort of non-space we are working currently. Thank you.
Thank you, Esko. And last but certainly not least, Natalia, please.
And good morning. I'm glad to welcome all participants and organizers on this meeting. I am representative of Republican Institute for Vocational Education, Belarus. Our institute provides methodological support to the teachers of vocational education. We elaborate normative documents and process which regulate vocational education in our republic. We conduct advanced training of teachers, particularly but not exclusively of how to use IT tools in the educational process. This year, with the support of UNESCO-UNEVOC, our team has implemented a project on developed a massive open online course, Fundamentals of Pedagogical Design of Online Courses for the TVET system. And today I'm delighted to present our experience of Belarus at this webinar. Thank you.
Thank you, Natalia. And before we actually launch the panel discussion, I'd like to introduce some Mentimeter questions to you, because it's very important to us also what information we can collect from you, the audience. And I would now invite you to either scan the QR code or use the link provided in the chat to access these questions. And we'll give you 2 minutes to go through them and give your replies. We have them here for the benefit of the translators. So if you are interpreting, if you can please read the questions in the language you are interpreting in. And otherwise, we'll have the audience now in 2 minutes address these questions. We'll use the first 2 questions as warm up for the panel discussion. And Maria, perhaps you can already view the results of the first question while we are getting the answers of the poll in. So the first question is, do you agree or disagree with the following? I find it challenging to make decisions between different digital services and tools, and I am satisfied with the digital tools and services available to me in my organization. So we'll give it a few seconds to get the final results. So it seems that most of our audience pretty much strongly agrees, 3.6, that it is challenging to make these decisions, which services and tools to use. And, but again, many seem fairly satisfied with the tools and services available in the organizations, which is also, of course, a very good thing, because if we have a lot of unsatisfied users, then that's unfortunate. But I think we'll stop reviewing this one here. And then the next question is, in your TVET institution, who mainly determines which digital tools and services are used? So it seems that it's almost a tie. Organizational management and teaching staff seem to have the loudest voice, so to speak, with IT department and students not being so strong, but a combination is gaining. So now we have a tie between management, and now teaching staff is winning. So that seems to be a very good situation. So actually teaching staff is heard. And now if we start actually with the panel discussion, the first question is, what should a TVET institution take into consideration when developing a digital strategy and making digital service decisions? And I would like to ask Kiam Wee to first address this question.
Hello. First, let me thank UNESCO-UNEVOC for the invitation to be on the panel this morning, or afternoon, or evening, depending on where you are. I think before I jump into this question, I would like to perhaps cycle back a little bit to why are we even using these tools? In the introductory remarks, the speakers have mentioned that we are in a pandemic situation, and many of us have to jump into using digital tools. But does it mean that when the pandemic is over, and if the pandemic is over, we're going to go back to the old ways? Because this is just a pandemic reason that we cannot meet, and therefore we have to use these tools. But I don't think many or even any of us consider this as a tool purely for the purpose of the pandemic. So I would like to say that I believe there are at least 4 good reasons beyond just the pandemic, beyond just the crisis, that people choose to go into using digital tools. And I would like to sum it up as 4 R's, right? The first is reach. It can reach many places. Like in today's conference, before we started, I asked if we had a physical one in the past, we could have accommodate 120 people due to fire reasons. But today we are 300, right? So you can reach many parts of this world, which you can't do physically. Similarly for our students. Some students you are not accessible, and then you can reach them with these tools. The second R I would like to say is rich. Richness is very rich, R-I-C-H, to use digital content. Our introductory remarks mentioned about augmented reality, virtual reality, videos, gamifications. All these are all possible because we are in the digital world. Physically, sometimes we can't do all of this. The third R I would like to think is a good reason for us to go into digital space is robots. Not so much as the physical robots we see, but the digital robots, or in many cases you hear of bots, chat bots, automated bots. What do these robots or these digital bots do? They behind the scene do the work that we used to do. They collect all the data, they do all the mundane things that we used to do as a teacher. We have to collect all the results and tabulate them, and then next day, the bots take care of all of them. The reason is because we're in a digital world. In a physical world, when you still have paper and pen, the bots cannot do this. But today, in the digital world, anything that the students submit, the robot can do all the back-end work for us as teachers. So that's another good reason. The final R, I think, is a good reason to go into the digital world is records. The records that you can keep because we're in the digital world. In the digital world, the amount of data that we can keep is almost limitless. If we are keeping paper, it will be mountains of them. It's not just the records that we can keep, but also the record that we can analyze. The amount of data that we can analyze because it's digital is so rich. If this piece of paper and pen, you probably, I don't know, you need how many armies of people to analyze through all the data, but because it's digital, some of the bots can do the work, the computer, the AI can do the work for us. So with this data, we can do comparisons. It's very fast. We know which student is learning, which student is not learning well. And the next day we can do intervention. So I give you 4 R's: reach, robots, and records. So these are good reasons for it. It's not just the pandemic alone. So with these reasons, we all go into the digital world. We go into using digital tools. And today, the problem is because it is so good, there are so many to choose from. So we talk about navigating this digital tools maze. Now, for me to address the issue of navigating, I would probably need to give you a map. I don't profess to tell you that I know the perfect map. I don't. But I hope I can leave some markers along the road that all of us can learn from. And this is from our own experience. We have gained some experience in what are some of the good markers that we can look for in this navigating journey. I think the most important about this journey is you have to start right. If you start wrong, then there's not much to navigate because you start on the wrong footing. If you're supposed to go south and you go north, no matter how much navigating you do, you're not going to reach your destination. So I'm going to share with you what I feel as 5 road marks or markers that can help us in navigating this maze from the start. Once you're started, if you started wrong, or if we started wrong, it is very difficult to navigate. So these markers are for starting. What are the 5 markers I want to leave with you? I will leave 5 S for you this time. I started with 4 R's, I'll do 5 S. The first is security. Security must be the thing that drives our selection. If it's not secure, no one wants to use it. If it is not secure for the users, for the institution, there's a lot of risk. When Singapore first started, because of the pandemic last year, we used, some of our school users use Zoom, and there was hacking in Zoom, right? And undesirable materials were shown to students because the hackers started to do funny things. So it has to be secure. If it's not secure, no one would want to use the system. So security has to be the biggest main reason you choose a particular tool. That's the first S. The second S I would like to leave with you is scale and scalability. Can you scale? Is it scalable? If you choose a tool that is very specialized, it works for a particular group of people, maybe the business school or maybe the nurses, but it's not scalable to the rest. It's good, but then you wouldn't have economy of scale, right? Because today, many of these tools are very complex. They are very sophisticated. They are very powerful, which makes them very expensive. If it is used by a small group of users, the cost per user goes up. If the same tool is used by a large number of users, the cost goes down per user, because many of these companies, they charge by the number of users, because the basic cost is there. There's a fundamental cost, and then per user, the cost increase is very, very small. But if you're a small group of users, the cost goes up very, very fast. The other thing about scalability and scale is when you have it on the cloud, for example, it's very large users, a lot of changes can be done very fast, including security. But if you're a small group, you typically run it on a local server. Well, then you have to manage everything yourself. So being able to scale to a large scale, you are able to get support beyond just your own organization. So that's the second S I leave with you, scale. The third S I want to leave with you for the discussion today is sharing. You want to choose a tool that allows for sharing, because many of the very rich content that I talk about, the second R, rich content that we create, they take a lot of time and effort to create. Take for example, a virtual reality or augmented reality package for learning. It takes a lot of time, a lot of experts spend some money to develop those for teaching and learning. Now, if it's used by a small group of users, then the cost of developing is very high. If it is used by many users, the cost goes down. But you know, your institution has maybe 200 students using it. So you are stuck. What if your partner institution somewhere down the road or in the next state or next country even wants to use the same package that you develop? Now, the only way for them to be able to share this same digital package is if they are using your same set of tools or your system or the learning management system. If you are using a learning management system A and I'm using B, even if you are sharing with me, it's not portable. We cannot port it around. It's just not compatible. However, if you're using the same system, then we can port it around very quickly. That's sharing. So if all of us choose a system that's commonly used by many groups, many institutions, the packages, the content that we create, we are then able to share very quickly. In fact, we can work with, for example, Singapore can work with Omnia and say, hey, look, why not you develop one package, I develop one package, and we share. So by spending effort of one, we get two each. Why not? So sharing is important, but to be able to share, you must have a common, widely used learning management system in the first place. Otherwise, it's not portable. The fourth S I would like to leave with you as a roadmap to think about is support. Not just about technical support within your institution, but the support from the vendor that is providing you the system. I think most of us today, we would not contemplate building our own learning management system to support because it's really very complex. We may have an IT division, department that helps us, but as a whole, we would probably consider buying a off-the-shelf learning management system to support us, a package that supports us. We would perhaps want to think about getting something that is from an organization or from a group, from a vendor that is able to support you in a responsive manner. If it's a very small company, 3 or 5 people, they may have developed a very outstanding, beautiful package, but there's only 3 of them, right? And when a crisis hit and everybody says, hey, help me, please, we're all in crisis. And in this pandemic, everyone is in a crisis. The whole world is in a crisis. Who are they going to support? They have only 3 men in this organization, but they develop a beautiful package. So you would like to think about a company that can support us in a crisis in a responsive manner. Do you think who you buy from would be able to give you that kind of support? Upgrades, right? Crisis, emergencies, you give a phone call. Today in the digital world, we are not working on a time frame of days or weeks. It is minutes and seconds. Your student cannot get into the system. Immediately, your phone rings and immediately they expect us to solve the problem. We don't have days to solve the problem. We have minutes to solve the problem. So support is absolutely important. The final S I want to leave with you before I end my discussion and hear your views is sandbox. What is a sandbox? We don't want a system where we cannot experiment with different ways of doing things or even a different system or a different subsystem. You must have a system where you are able to create a sandbox where people can experiment. And this experimentation shouldn't disrupt the main system, the main IT system. So it has to be a system where you can sort of ring fence, is safe, a small group of staff and students can play in that sandbox. It's not permanent as the word means. It is a sandbox, right? It is temporary. Things are not so hard. You are allowed to make plenty of mistakes there, and you are not going to crash the whole institution's IT system. You're not going to allow a virus or a bug, infiltration, hacking through the sandbox into the main system. But yet at the same time, you have a sandbox where people can experiment and can play in there. Now, if you create a sandbox like this in your system, then your staff will have buy-in because they would like to try something. And when it works, it's plugged into the main one. When it doesn't work, they fail. Well, okay, somebody else can try again. So I leave you with these 5 S, right, that we think about as key markers on our road. First is security, very, very important to have security. Next is scale and scalable. Is it scalable? Third, sharing. We have to be able to share. In a digital world, the power is in sharing because we are all using more or less the same thing. And sharing is split seconds. I can send something to Finland within split seconds and same thing split second back. So sharing is actually important. Support for the technology that we invested. And finally, a sandbox that our staff and students could experiment with no risk to the organization. So I leave this as remarks for us to discuss. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kamwi. Very interesting. So now we have 4 R's and 5 S's from Singapore as our markers. Esko, I'd like to ask you, how is your compass today? How do you see this whole picture, this digital maze? How are your markers, or how have you helped or advised people to navigate the maze?
Yeah, if I start by commenting on these Kamwi's alphabets, very profound set of sort of R's and S's there. So I was very keen on listening to that. You started with this question that I think everybody here today, we have gathered here to ask why we are using these tools in the first place. Not only how, but why. So when we learn some solutions to those whys and some answers, I think that that gives some way to go forward in developing one's digital transformation strategies. Would you, Mervi, like me to continue commenting Kamwi's talk?
Yes,
or
please.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. I know that I have only a small time. We could talk whole day. Actually, this is Kamwi's talk was such a good start for a longer process that I recommend that everyone comes back and listens and sees what kind of things there are. But only I'll comment these 4 R's, those reasons beyond the crisis. And yeah, reach and richness or rich content, robots and bots, and then records that we keep and what we do with them. So I'd like to point out and emphasize that with this reach, we have to think also that TVET is especially, it's very connected to the world outside. So there are 2 elements that both the IT and the management and the teaching staff have to think about: how we involve or how we consider personal learning environments of the learners, and also the educators, and how we think about the digital environments that the working places and the world of work uses in the context that we work in, those areas that we are. So within this reach, it's not only whether it's on site or online, it's also how the personal reach goes. Then the richness, this is such a timely topic and a concept right now, as we have new free open standards helping teachers who have, for example, our teachers have started with doing with their students some very basic mobile phone taken educational video clips, uploaded them to YouTube or Vimeo or wherever, and they have gotten some kind of library of video learning material. And now when we have H5P is such a technology that has started to spread popularity quite soon and rapidly. So it helps us to make those contents that are ready-made, already they exist. Now we can work on those and even make more out of these, enriching them, making them interactive and so on. So a teacher don't have to think that, okay, now I start building from scratch, but actually many teachers have some content already, and now they can just ensure that the impact is even better. Sure, and then the robots, and I think that not only that they help us, especially in industrial work, or bots and AI, they help us in getting some learning analytics and so forth. But surely they change professions. There are many that don't exist now that are needed in 5 years or very soon at least. And so the competence needs, not only for the learners, but also for the educators, they change so rapidly. And I was very happy when Kiamui mentioned about support in the 5 S's there. And the last part of my comment was that about those records that we keep and what we do actually with them. So not only that, okay, it's good to have some learning data and whether the student has done an assignment or not, and whether there is automatic assessment or not, but sort of to build new modules and courses, so and even bigger modules, so that there is this difference on impact and also different on effectivity, how the organization and its personnel do the work, and so that the records actually help the student to understand what they are doing and why they are doing things. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you, Esko. It's interesting what sort of an impact all of this will have on TVET today and in the future even more so. If you look at things like Internet of Things and the reach of it, data collection and security become big questions. And whether we're training sales personnel or whether we're training people to repair all these Internet of Things appliances makes a big impact on TVET. Just recently, I was actually buying a refrigerator for our summer cottage. And the first question I was asked by the salesperson was, do you want a smart fridge? So again, I'm not sure that I need a smart fridge, but anyway, that would have been an option. On to our next question, but before that, actually, let's review the results of the third Mentimeter question. So the question was, should teachers make the final pedagogical decision on which digital tools and services to use or not? So by far, yes is the one getting all the votes. So definitely we need to involve teachers, and teachers need to be a big part of understanding and building the digital ecosystem of the TVET providers. But let's go on to our second discussion question. And basically, that gets into the choices. So the question is, should we allow teachers to make individual choices on digital tools? What are the pros and cons of this? And I would like to ask Natalia to address this question first.
Thank you very much for the question. When we analyze how work teachers in VET colleges in Belarus, we understand that a lot of teachers have a low level of using IT tools in everyday teaching. And we need a special training for them to how implement in pedagogical everyday life. And we believe that an important component in preparing teachers to work with digital tools is teaching them the technology of pedagogical design and the choice of digital tools based at least maybe 3 components. The first one is training goals and outcomes. What learners should eventually learn? At what level of understanding and application should they acquire knowledge and skills? The answer to this question will help a teacher choose the right tools to achieve pedagogical goals. The second one is a chosen model of interaction with learners. For example, full online training or traditional offline training with use of digital tools. The majority of Belarusian vocational education institutions in daily life are practicing IT tools introduction in classical forms of education or blended learning. Also, 2020 has demonstrated the needs to be ready for quick transition to the online format or back in traditional format. Therefore, the teachers should have a minimum sets of knowledge for working both offline and online. And the third one is the technical capabilities of both the teachers and learners. Therefore, during advanced training courses for teachers, we talk about not only of functionality of digital tools and their technological capabilities. We above all about the levels of master knowledge and skill that can be achieved using various pedagogical and digital tools. Some possible scenarios of lesson or all training course in which these digital tools can be applied. The very design of lesson is a creative process, and the teacher has the rights to choose digital tools that will help him or her and the students to better reveal the topic under study. There is no point to limit strictly the teachers too much in this work. But at the same time, we consider it positive if a team of the teachers from one educational institution select a certain common corporative style, possibly a single design platform, digital platform, or determines for itself a list of the most convenient digital tools, since this will avoid chaos in the student heads and needs to switch constantly, not only from one subject to another subject, but also from one digital tools or instrument to another. Thank you.
Thank you. So definitely a basic skill set for everybody is necessary. Otherwise, as a teacher, you can't do your job anymore. Kian-Wei, how do you see this in Singapore? I mean, do you allow individual choices, or what is your policy?
Right. Definitely, we do allow individual choices. As I mentioned, that we do embrace the concept of a sandbox. Some of them, they experiment with the tools just in a small setting in a classroom, for example, they can use. But if they want to experiment within our learning management system, so as a subsystem, then we have to carve out a safe space for them to use, so that any problems fallout in that particular small space won't affect the rest of the learners. So we do strongly encourage that. But my comment about this question or this tension, perhaps sometimes the organization wants it done in a manner, and then the staff sees a different perspective. My comment is that we should again try to start with a common understanding, that I think as Natalia mentioned, that there is a common purpose and goal that we want to achieve. Once we are able to communicate that, I think by and large, the staff and organization will probably land in a space where we are choosing more or less the same thing, right? Because we have common standards or criteria, a selection purpose why we are choosing a system to support you and support the organization. If we don't make that clear up front, how we are going to do this for the good of the whole organization, not just for your faculty or this small group of people, then we tend to end up with a bit of tension later on. If we make it clear and we involve everyone in this decision-making process, you'll be surprised that we end up with the same solution, right? In our same choices, because our purpose are aligned. So I thought I'd just leave this as a comment to say, let's involve the staff early, but let us be clear that we all share a common purpose, we all share a common objective, and work towards this objective in the way we make our selection. I think that will be helpful down the road.
Thank you.
That's all my comment. Yeah.
Thank you. So I think that's very important from a TVET institutional point of view, that you have to look at the purpose. So the digital tools have to have a common purpose, and we have to share this. To get a better picture of what sort of a maze we're actually talking about, let's review the results of the remaining Mentimeter questions. So the first question was actually on how many digital tools and services are you using in your work? And it seems that the majority is actually using a couple, with some escalating more to 3 to 5 or 6 to 10. And one person actually confesses to using 11 plus, which tends to be quite a maze already. But we then have also people who are using none. So I think that will change in the future. So there will be more and more of the tools and software that is and will be available, and perhaps necessary also as a part of the TVET training. And then the last question we have is a very important one. Does your organization have staff appointed for giving digital services support? Yes, but not enough seems to be the winning answer here. And that actually leads us to the third panel discussion question, which evolves actually around possible clashes. So question is, an IT administrative perspective versus learning perspective. Are those, let's say, clashing views? And in organizations, in everyday life, in learning, teaching and learning, do they clash? And I'd like to ask Esko to address the question to start with.
Thank you, Mervi. So, yeah, it's very sort of powerful way of thinking things to put them on different opposite sides and start regarding different aspects, and especially developing the use of ICT in TVET. It's been quite a bit an organization-specific internal issue where there are different sort of departments doing their own job, and then they feel that they have sort of different approach and different objectives. And usually, just like the Mentimeter questions, it is about IT, and then there are teachers and teaching staff. And I like very much that you formulated this question that it's IT administrative perspective versus learning perspective. It's not teaching, but learning perspective. So when we are talking about whether these two clash, IT administration and learning, I tend to think that it's more and more, especially in TVET, that we are and we should be collaborating with the external society that we have, and think about how we ensure practical projects with working life, startups, CT, etc. In traditional sort of way of speaking, IT administration, it has emphasized and still does IT security. That's surely, as we've heard and understand, it's a very important issue. But also data migration, what we do with data and how we ensure that it's processed properly. and standardized processes and technological and administrative approach. So all these that are in the focus of IT administration, they are relevant and they are important, just as are the teachers' traditional sort of approach that teachers want to do on pedagogical reasoning, their own technological choices. But then again, there are two quite different groups. One is the early adapters who take just anything, any bell and whistle, just does the miracle. And then there are the tech haters who know that, okay, face-to-face and learning is a mental internal process at the core. So they think that ease of teaching and easy to use IT, they are very important sort of aspects. But usually, yes, I've been working with teachers in many countries, and usually it's maximum freedom and full support needed when they think what kind of a technology or tools they need in this maze of different kinds of services. But as I got a question in the question and answer panel on pedagogical implications, so I think that we have to, whether we are in the IT administration or in the educational staff, we have to keep at the center the student, naturally, the reason of our institution to exist. But it doesn't mean that it is a sort of a cohort or a homogeneous group that is entering into studies and getting some content into their head and off they go to the world of work. But personal learning environments, especially digital ones, they are very essential in a way how they understand things, how they collaborate, how they communicate and sort of develop their competencies. More and more, especially when we have more tools, more abstract technologies, special educational needs need to be addressed, and that's a pedagogical question as well. Then privacy issues come into picture if we think about WhatsApp or whatever there are. So how to ensure that we obey all the rules and think all the privacy settings. But there are very good sort of pro sides on using these kind of different kinds of personal learning environments, because that leaves the student way or gives opportunities to express their professional identity online and make themselves known. For example, our chef students have gotten their very good restaurant environment working places by showing that, okay, on Instagram, for example, that they can this and that. Then, as I mentioned earlier, that working life, they have their own environments, and especially when they, in Finland, for example, we have a completely competency-based TVET. So internships and work-based learning, they are very essential. How does the information flow between the school and teacher and the student and the working place? So these are things to consider together. So I would say that to avoid this kind of a clash, whenever starting or developing current digital strategies, how to transform learning, is that there has to be a body, a group of people, both from the IT sector and from teaching staff, to find joint objectives and how to get the desired impact, how to collaborate. So the question is, what value we are creating together and to whom? And how to find that, then it's more like a practical thing, how to find that value optimally. And for example, in Omnia and many other institutions, the basic sort of starting point is that some strategic steering is needed in systemic level. So there is freedom in details in such that are not affecting reporting data, etc. So IT administration, it's an enabler of good learning results, and both parties or all this group who is developing have to find some metrics, some key performance indicators that are related to the sort of main object of the institute or the education provider, how they are related to learning, to provide that. And
I think we're
yeah,
sort of running out of time, so thank you, Esko.
yeah,
That
that's
was
okay.
great. So creating value instead of clashes should be our #1 objective for sure. Can I ask Natalia to shortly comment on how do you ensure in your organization that you're creating value and avoiding clashes?
Thank you. I want to add maybe 2 remarks. As the growth of digital tools and online training in vocational education system continues to accelerate rapidly, the need of IT administration of learning process becomes undeniable. However, there is a clear understanding that it is impossible to achieve a high-quality education exclusively through digitalization. We must not forget about issues of students' motivation, verification of learning outcomes, soft skill development, and etc. Not only digital tools we need to see. Another challenge is the competent introduction of digital tools into practical training, being the most significant component of vocational education. Moreover, as the teachers themselves say, it is difficult and sometimes impossible to replace practical skills associated with manual labor with the digital tools. Therefore, the digitalization of education must be reasonable, but not succumb to the general wave of the massive online. Thank you.
Thank you, Natalia. Our final question is actually to all of our panelists, and I'll give each of you an abundance of 2 minutes to explain some good practice that you would like to share. So basically, the question is, can you share a good practice on how you have supported teachers and learners in the digital maze? So a good practice, a good tip that you would like to share. And I'll start with Kianwi.
Okay, I'll just share one tip, and I think as a good practice, we should encourage all staff to try. It is important because I think some staff are still hesitant to try. Yes, you can set up a whole system, but they tend to want to go back to the old ways, right? Fortunately, I use the word, but I hope you don't kill me for this. Fortunately, we had the pandemic, but the thing is that without the pandemic, they may never try. With the pandemic, they have no choice but to try. We must encourage everyone to try, and then we support them in their difficulties. If you never try, you wouldn't know how good and how much more you can do for the students with the digital tools. You must try. That's my comment.
Thank you. So the pandemic has made your teachers brave. So
yes, indeed. Yes.
As Esko said, there are always those who are the forerunners, who are in the sandbox, who want to try everything and anything.
Yes.
That's not enough. Everybody needs to be brave. Everybody needs to try. Yes. Very good. Thank you. Natalia, would you like to share a good practice?
Yes, I want to share with Belarusian practice. We are developing several directions in Belarus to help to support our teachers and learners. First direction is the teachers training programs, which include studying digital tools and their application in the teacher practice, studying the principle of building communication between teachers and learners in the context of digital tools introduction. This year, we firstly opened new training program of specialists in special distance learning. And second direction is experimental projects implemented based on educational institutions, which appropriate new technologies, cloud technology, network technologies, interactive and others, with subsequent dissemination of the best practice to other educational institutions. And third direction is holding a competition, which names Information Technology in Vocational Education, where teachers from all regions present the methodological guidance papers. The best works become the basic for elaboration of e-learning tools by professions, disciplines, and include as attachments into paper textbooks and teaching aids. Thank you.
Thank you. And I totally share your best practice and good practice in teacher training, because when the teacher becomes a learner and uses the digital tools and services as a part of his or her own learning, then that's a very powerful experience that I can do this. I was the learner and I did this. And therefore then changing the role as to become the teacher to use it and to smoothly sail through it. Although, you know, you have to be brave, you have to try, but the fact that you were a learner and you got to use it as a learner is a very powerful experience and motivates teachers as well. And also you can basically change roles and enlarge the learning environment, so you can include the different, let's say, private partner stakeholders you might have, etc. So by using the tools wisely for learning and teacher training, we can do wonders. So I definitely share that thought, and I think that was a very valuable one to also emphasize that we need to have professional development for teachers as well. Esko, would you like to share a good practice?
Yeah, plenty of, but only 2 minutes, sorry. So for the first, I would like to share a very practical approach. I will paste it on the chat, a website, how we help our teachers and students to navigate the maze of digital tools and services. So we created a website that has helpful resources online, pedagogical practices, and also instructions how to use stuff. And on that page you will find it's mostly in English, but the interactive graph is in Finnish, sorry. But the idea is that there is an explanation and further pages what the institute provides, and then some suggestions that if this is your approach, you are needing, for example, mind maps or videos or whatever, click on this name of the tool, and then our site has a proper page describing describing that services. So that might be helpful approach for you as well. And now still I have 1 minute, and we were asked on the chat whether we have some instructions or ideas or resources for open educational resources. So in an European project 2 years ago, I wrote a guide for open educational resources. It's a practical guidebook. It sheds light on practical use and implementation, especially in vocational education and training. So you will find that link to IV4J. There is the page, and there are plenty of material, and I'm referring to the guide for open educational resources. Thanks.
Thank you, Esko. And I encourage everybody else in our audience also to share any links that they believe would be valuable to other participants or our speakers in the chat. I do see that a good many links have already been shared, which is great. So that's always one way to help one another and to support one another. Before we go to our Q&A, I would like to now share a video with you. So we actually have a video introducing a model called DigiTutors in Omnia, and it's about how we have used TVET students to tutor actually TVET staff in digital challenges. And the person being interviewed, Dennis, I believe is his name, is actually a former graduate of Omnia who went on to get a bachelor's degree from the University of Applied Sciences, and after that was employed by Omnia, and he's now running the DigiTutor program. So it's about a 5-minute video. So let's see what Dennis has to say.
Hello and welcome. My name is Dennis Shemyakin. I am DigiTutorit instructor at Omnia Education in Finland. I will talk a little bit about DigiTutorit's model to support teachers and staff in this digital transition. So, DigiTutors are a service in Omnia Education. We provide digital user support. We focus on helping the user navigate whatever device or service they need help with. So DigiTutorit was founded in 2017 in Omnia. Back then, the thinking was that we want to provide our students with an authentic work experience. In Finland, in the vocational studies, students learn a lot in school, but they also have a mandatory periods that they will go to a workplace as interns or apprentices. This can be a private firm or anything else where they will practice with certain learning goals in mind. And while we are not a private firm, we do provide this service for real customers, and thus we provide an authentic learning experience and learning environment for our students. And our idea is that a user can come in and ask for help in virtually any matter possible, and we will try to resolve it to the best of our abilities. And if this is not resolved, we cannot resolve it, we then direct them to the correct location. Furthermore, we do media production, and we support the teachers in the class. This has been very instrumental in our organization. So if a teacher has a class that involves technical items such as iPads, a teacher can ask for DigiTutorit to come there and help out in the class so that their time does not go in resolving individual students' problems that arise in the class. They can continue teaching while the DigiTutorit is resolving the problem in the background. So a little bit about how internship works here. So all Omnia vocational students may apply. We do not have any hard requirements as far as skills goes. Just basic IT use skills is enough for us, because we just want that baseline understanding for our applicants. We will teach all the essentials by ourselves. And the interns' willingness to learn is really the deciding factor. And also, we have implemented anonymous recruiting. So this means that me, the recruiter, I do not have the personal information of the student or of the applicant. And this is designed to sort of minimize any biases that I might have. So help desk needs help with alleviating the workload. And we do that by training our students who need experience, while help desk can focus on more pressing matters. Furthermore, our customers win because they have not only more speedier service, but also they have access to all these other services that would not otherwise be available, such as producing teaching materials, support during live streams, or otherwise.
So that was an additional good practice example. And now it's time for our Q&A. And I've selected a couple of questions that were already commented on, but I believe that would perhaps serve purpose to discuss here as well. And one of our questions would be about digital divide, goes both for reach, but also for inclusivity. So for instance, can we go 100% digital and actually reach those who don't have access to quality TVET? Or can we use digital tools and services to make TVET more inclusive? I think those would be perhaps questions that would be interesting to address here. And I'd like to ask Kyung-Wee to start and give your opinion about both access and inclusivity.
I'll probably start with the first, whether we can go 100% full digital. I think for a TVET organization, that's kind of be difficult because of the advances in technology. I think we are still lacking in the way we are able to replace practical skills, training of practical skill, demonstration of practical skills. I think maybe in the future, we would be able to do more in this area. But today we are quite limited in what the technology can offer. What are some ideas that we have for future for practical skills? Certainly, augmented reality, virtual reality, even to some extent, some form of hologram. All these are possible technologies that could be employed in the future to have practical skills learned in the digital world. Does that mean we then can go 100% full on digital? I don't think so, but maybe the amount of physical can be further reduced, right? Would you trust someone to I don't know, to service your car and the brakes of your car if all he did was a physical digital learning and practice on the computer? Would you trust him with your car? Maybe not yet, right? So you want to let him do a real car before you allow it. So I think we are not there fully for full online without physical. Of course, in terms of inclusiveness, in fact, I think that with digital, we can be more inclusive because today we are quite limited if people with certain certain limits, like for example, they may not be able to see, they may not be able to hear. But I think with digital technology, it in fact offers them what they would otherwise have missed out. Digital technology today offers a lot more access to learning than in the days when we were just doing physical. So I thought it opened up more doors than closing. So that's my comments.
Thank you. Esko, typically in Finland, if we look at TVET, our students are between the ages of 16 to 65, as in the spirit of lifelong learning. How do you see this? Is there a digital divide between the learners as well? Is it true that, you know, the young learners are all gung-ho about new digital stuff and the slightly elderly, as some might be, are not so enthusiastic, or is this a myth?
Well, interesting question whether it is, and it was actually also in Finland quite a big difference between the young guns and the older folks attending vocational education and training. But nowadays, the difference is very low. And I think that if there is anything good that we can say that COVID-19 has brought, it's this, that we were forced to take digital tools into daily use, whether we are young or not, or in the working life or not. So I think that that has leveled the thing a little bit. One thing that I think that I would like to address the question to, can we, so that both in Finland and especially in developing countries, there are too few qualified teachers, or too few teachers in general, and a lot of students. And as it is more and more sort of group-based learning, and there are so many students, the digital tools, if their user interface and their interactivity is used properly, they can sort of ease that access and inclusivity things that students can sort of drill again and again, and so there is limitless time for their use. And in Finland, as a last point, I don't think that it's not so much the age issue, but we are a small nation with our own peculiar Finnish language, and practically we tend to use that Finnish everywhere. But gradually we have become a more multicultural society, so that also in Omnia there are 100 different nationalities, and many of those don't speak Finnish. So digital tools help many those who are not native Finnish speakers, or whatever your language is there out in your countries, that there are so many nice automatic translation tools that we have been enjoying lately.
So basically it can, if you look at the different digital tools and services, they can give access, and they can, let's say, even out certain inclusivity factors. I think that's an important thing to think about, and definitely an asset supporting why we should be brave and try things. But again, if we look at what all is available, and basically we have to make choices. So the question is, how should we assess the digital solutions? What kind of a process should we have in making those choices, whether it's for the sandbox or whether it's for the whole organization? Natalia, would you like to comment on how your organization perhaps assesses or makes choices in the different digital tools and services?
First of all, when we try to help our teachers, we try to speak about the needs. What's the need in a special situation? Because in different colleges or institutions, there are different situations. Small groups, if we say about inclusive groups, or big number of students, it depends especially on specific of specialization or discipline, and we try to analyze a special situation in which teachers and students work and communicate. And then we try to understand what tools and what methodological technologies can help them to reach this situation, to achieve their goals, and like educational goals, when we understand and especially individual goals by every students, and it's process with which analyze specific situation in real life, because only in institute we think maybe we try to understand all what do in Republic, but we need to be more closely for teacher needs.
Thank you. So basically understanding the needs is the core here. Another question regarding basically partnerships with the world of work. I mean, TVET needs to be very close to companies. So do you have best practice, or can you comment on, have you used digital tools to somehow, let's say, enhance communication with the world of work? For instance, in the pandemic, when it was not possible to visit maybe students doing work-based learning, what were you using, or does digital play a role here? Esko, can you share some points from Finland?
Yeah, thanks. For the first, as our TVET is competency-based, and our students need to go to the working places, and there was and still is to some extent limitations with this. So our students and the working places have used a specific sort of digital tools and solutions where the information flows between student, the workplace instructor, and the teacher. And what is very, very nice here in Finland is that the national authorities have provided databases and registers where all the qualification data is available, and it flows to the system. So it is quite handy. But yet again, even when there aren't any such, even Zoom, Teams, these kind of tools have been of big importance. Also in that the students understand how the nowadays current world of work works, how we meet up with our colleagues, and it means just this that we are doing currently here. So it's very important that the students get their role, and they get their sort of practices up to date in the digital environments as well.
Can I make a comment here?
Yes,
All
go
right.
ahead.
So in fact, I want to share that due to the pandemic, before that, we were, of course, working with industry. We send our students there for internship, and they get practice. The pandemic, in fact, we saw the reverse happening, because most companies, although they do a lot of training on a normal day, they do not invest very highly into digital learning, online courses. They do on-the-job training. Now, due to the pandemic, some work has to be stopped. Right, they may not be able to go to work at all, and then they have staff who they would like to upgrade, but they don't have such a rich set of training lessons and modules online. So they come to us because we have all of them online. So we are now supporting them in their staff training, which they previously didn't need us at all. I thought this is a wonderful partnership. When we need you, you help me, and now you meet me. I'm there to support you, and when things go back, we'll send our students back to you again. Yeah, that's my comment.
Thank you. So basically, TVET institutions can serve the world of work in many ways, and digital is one way to, let's say, help them find and also fill the gaps.
Yes.
In terms of training that's needed, just-in-time training, and something quick to bridge them over to a better tomorrow and future.
Yes, and they're online, because most companies do not invest heavily on online training materials.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So thank you, and I'd like to thank all of our speakers, our panelists, for their rich contribution. I think we have some great takeaways from this webinar, and basically I think we need to continue the discussion. I mean, this was just scratching the surface, and there are so many things that we could discuss further, and hopefully we can be able to do that in the future, either face-to-face or online. UNESCO-UNEVOC, I'm sure, will not drop any of these themes in the near future, but I'd like to thank everybody and pass the floor back to Jens for closing remarks.
Well, thank you very much, Mary, and also a big thank you to our panelists for sharing their examples and insights in this really rich and interesting discussion today. Finding the best technical solutions for digitalization in TVET institutions is certainly not always easy. And while the large and growing number of available tools and services poses challenges in some ways, at the same time, it also offers opportunities for better delivery. Of course, for both learners and teachers, I think we've also heard that today a certain degree of stability and consistency is useful, such as probably through a common learning management system at an institutional level, but at the same time exploring new tools that support collaboration, that best match the purpose of different subject matters and learning goals is probably something that will become second nature for teachers in the future. And in our discussion about digitalization in TVET institutions, we often forget to talk about those institutions which cannot easily implement, let's say, a full-fledged institutional digitalization strategy, for example, because they cannot afford to equip all teachers, trainers, technicians, and students with the required equipment. In those situations, digitalization often still takes place through the initiative of some individual teachers. And also they deserve our support and guidance. And I think we touched upon this today. And it's important that even in those situations, these teachers and trainers are supported and not isolated in their efforts to promote digitalization where it's needed. So we would like to encourage you all to be open to new digital tools and services in TVET, to be part of the digitalization process where it is needed, and probably most importantly, to embrace peer learning. Also, this was mentioned today. To improve the digital services and delivery swiftly with all the benefits that it may have for different individuals, we can learn a lot from practical experiences, and we're always looking for ideas and examples that may have a replication value elsewhere. So if you have any interesting examples that you would like to share, please get in touch with us and let us know so that we can pass it on or facilitate this exchange. As we're coming to the end of this webinar series, where we have covered the digital competence and the future of work, the often overlooked social aspects of digital learning in TVET, and today navigating the maze of digital tools and services, we would like to thank again you all for your interest, for joining us, also for the many questions that we've received. We would like to thank GIZ for the generous support and our implementation partner, Omnia Education Partnership, for helping us making these webinars, but also the 3-month training program for 5 of our UNEVOC centers a reality. Even though we are only able to scratch just the surface of this digitalization challenge in TVET, as also Murray had just said, we hope that we're able to contribute to the discussion and share some relevant feedback with you and information with you. Before we close, I would also like to take this opportunity to invite you to our online conference in the context of our BUILD project on bridging Africa and Europe, where we will discuss new qualifications and competencies in TVET, also on digitalization. And again, this will be another platform to exchange on good practices and see how we can learn from each other. So this conference will take place on 15th and 16th of June, and the registration will open shortly. So you will find information about that on our webpage, most likely towards the end of next week. We now look forward to seeing you again soon, and this discussion about digitalization will carry us forward for a considerable amount of time. So let's engage in this and embrace it. So thank you again for joining us. Goodbye.